You're watching Rock and Roll Rugby, and obviously, as a Springbok supporter, this morning smiling after the game. It was a really, really good performance by the Springboks. I think a very good way to start the campaign. For the Scottish, I think it was just from start to finish. I think they thought they would be able to outplay the Springboks with the rush defence by putting little kicks through. But you can see the Springboks really prepared well for this game. The Wings was very aware of the little kicks from Russell, and the amount of pressure that was put onto Russell was outstanding by the Springboks. Faf de Klerk did a really good job at that. Generally, everyone, Peter Steph de Toy, everyone was putting so much pressure on Russell that he could just not do what he usually does. And if you watch the Scotland game plan, they definitely were looking at saying, look, we're not going to do the Tui Piloto run around move, which they so often do, where they play the crash ball off of him, because they probably felt they would be nullified with the rush defense, which I think they would have if they had to want to play that, because it would have been very predictable. They instead were playing off of a lot of forwards. They were trying moves like from the line out, trying to throw it deep on Tui Piloto, and tried a lot of different things. From set moves, I saw them standing all in a line, which was very interesting from a Scotland perspective. And nothing came off. The rush defense was very successful. There was one time that I felt in the whole game that the Scottish had an opportunity maybe to expose the rushing defense. But I must say, the Springboks always, that rush defense is high risk, high reward. But man, when it comes off like today, and when it came off against the All Blacks, you could see it really kind of, because it's so aggressive, just totally cancels a team out of the game. You could see eventually Scotland had no answers. At the start, I must say, very well from the Scottish when it came to the scrums. They won some scrums against the Springboks, and the Springboks looked a little bit off first half on the scrums. And second half, you could see, typical Springboks set piece at the scrums. I don't know what Jock and Rassie had to say to the guys, but definitely too strong in the back, too strong in the scrums second half from the Springboks versus the Scottish. And even the lineouts was concerning for Scotland. The Springboks was able to steal many lineouts from the Scottish. And just generally, rolling mauls was dangerous, especially second half. I thought Faf de Klerk played a really good game. He wasn't erratic. He wasn't doing silly things. He was playing a real, responsible game. But anyway, let's react to the actual highlights. So, the game started off really tight. It wasn't from the start. You could immediately see the Springboks had patience, but holding on to possession very early in the game. It took them 11 minutes before they got their first penalty, the Springboks. Manie Libbok very poor with his kicking, hooking the ball. It was a little bit of an angle, but it was really not that difficult to kick. He misses the first kick, and it's still 0-0. Then 13 minutes, yet again another penalty for the Springboks. This time we find Manie Libbok is able to put it through. Now already you can see from the start in this game, the Springboks have got a lot of patience. They're playing through phases, and they that rush defense is immediately on Scotland, and you can see Scotland, can feel the rush defense. We see a lot of things that Russell tries. He tries the little kicks back. For the most part, the one Cheslin Colby's back, he kind of slaps the ball back in, and I think in general territorial game, the Scottish did win some territory, but it didn't help them much, because the kicks that came off successfully from Russell, they did win some territory, but it didn't help them much, because as soon as the Springboks was running with the ball, they were gaining so much meters with those forwards, playing phases through phases, and holes starting to open up already. Covering, the Springboks was just doing very simple things with the backline, running it through the backline to the wings, not really breaking the line all that much, but a very kind of composed Springboks for me, not trying anything too fancy at the start, just trying to get control of the game. Manie Libbok then gets a penalty and converts his second penalty, and now it's 6-0. Now, at this point, already the lineouts is a bit of a worry for the Scottish, But they were pretty good at the scrums, man. They were, getting the better actually of the Springboks. And I was surprised that Frans Malherbe was struggling so much in that first half on the scrums. Something looked a little bit off with the Springbok scrum that we used to. But it was a good start for them. You could see Scotland was up for it in the forwards. For sure were up for it. 26 minutes in, I think Yemen had a niggle or something, some kind of injury. Hopefully nothing serious. Argeus Snyman comes on. And man, if you want a good substitute, Argeus Snyman on for Eben Etzebeth. Argeus Snyman comes on, and what a game did this guy have. Now we go 41 minutes into the game. Still a very tight game, but if you watch the game, you'd know that the Springboks was looking like the team that was threatening all the time. They were not converting all the points. They were really doing nothing fancy, playing it with the forwards, running it through the backs, but not going for anything too... there was too much on the line. So they were playing it very patiently. Scrum's a bit worrying, but otherwise Springboks was looking like the team that was threatening all the time. A few times doing, I don't know why, kicking ball away with 10 meters out from the try line, which they're trying to create opportunities, but at the same time giving away possession, and then giving the opportunity for Scotland to exit. 41 minutes in, Finn Russell gets his first penalty, and he puts it through. Obviously he doesn't miss often. And then just 2 minutes later, Manie Libbok also gets another opportunity at the post. Missed again. He hooks it again. And at this point, it's frustrating because, the Springboks can't afford it in these big games to have them missing kicks. Yeah, guys, that was pretty much the first half. What I could see from the first half is there were two kind of questionable tackles. The one was on Jesse Creel, made a tackle. He was quite high up. But it wasn't direct head contact, just faces touching. That was early in the game. And then there was one from Finn Russell. I think it was on Cheslin Colby where he just ran in with the shoulder. At the end, just conceding a penalty, but it's a tough one, man. I've got to tell you, he was running in, he wasn't wrapping, running in with a shoulder. In my opinion, any other game so far in this World Cup, that would have been a yellow. I don't think it would go to a red, but it would be yellow and reviewed to the bunker system. Angus Ross deciding now he's just going to give a penalty. So yeah, it is what it is. Look, we go into half-time. Time is there, as they call it, the third quarter, just after half-time. I think there's definitely, you can see when coaches have got an influence in the team, you can see Rassie is a really good speaker, and Jacques also got his place in motivating that team. And I think half-time they just said, come on guys, you're not up to the scrums, you can be better at this. It's scrum time, let's take control of this game. And second half, you could see the game started really, the momentum started turning into the Springboks' favour. The Scottish making a lot of mistakes, at line out, losing balls, eventually scrums now starting to collapse, and the Springboks getting the better in the scrums. We see the rolling maul starts getting better at the rolling maul, and the Springboks getting more time on the ball to just run it, and you see here and there the back starting to create some space. In the 47th minute, Manie Libbok seeing the space, not even looking as he's kicking that ball, puts a pinpoint in the hand of Kurt Arendse, and you're just not going to stop these wings. You can see there, he didn't even look, he was looking up as he was giving the kick. It's kind of amazing if you look at it. I mean, this guy, just as good as Russell, Sexton, Barrett, those top guys with the cross kicks. And this is the thing with Manie Libbok. He brings that to the team. And this was probably, for me, the most positive thing to see from the Springbok coaching staff. I really like how they've changed the way they approach their coaching. They've changed the type of game that Springboks play. So I really have respect for what this coaching staff did. I think the last World Cup, it was very strict. This is the type of game we play. In this World Cup, starting to play more of a running game, but also now acknowledging, not being stubborn, acknowledging Manie Libbok's not kicking well, giving the tee to Faf, and Faf de Klerk kicked very well. He kicked outstanding. He converted the try, and I think that's all that, from a Springbok supporter's perspective, you wanted to see. Around the 53rd minute, usually where the substitution starts coming in, Springboks bringing some fresh legs up front with Oxenchair and Trevor and Eric Hani. And at the same time, the Scottish going for VPNL, Cummins and David Cherry to come on from the bench. obviously to combat, to also get fresh legs onto the field. Malcolm Marx also goes off for Bongi Mbunambi. He's got a head injury. In the 58th minute, misses a kick this time to the post. 60th minute, Dwayne Vermeulen on for Jasper Wiese. Man, I mean, this is the thing that the Springboks have got now, guys. We've got a Springbok team with a lot of depth. And because there's a lot of depth in this team, it really allows the Springboks to bring in such impact players. And that impact you can clearly see on a game. And from a coaching perspective, I think it's probably the country that's prepared the best in depth for this World Cup. I would say the other team would be Ireland. But these are the two teams that I feel really have the most depth. Ollie Smith is on for Darcy Graham. Redpath comes on for Tuipoloto. And Tuipoloto was basically, he did almost nothing in this game. I barely saw him on the ball. He's usually so instrumental for the Scottish, playing with Russell. And guys, this is what I mentioned. I did say this before this game that, you know, there's one or two, you know, really things that Scotland go to. And one of those is playing off of Tuipoloto. Because they were not allowed to do that, they were struggling. That was for sure. And then Price on for Ben White. Marnie Libbok at the 69th minute goes off for Willie Leroux. And we see Faf de Klerk coming off for Grant Williams. You'd thought, oh, now this is trouble because they're changing, you know, important positions. But not long after that, Grant Williams makes an amazing break. Now, this boy's fast. I don't think people have really... Grant Williams should still make a name for himself in this World Cup. This young boy is just extremely fast. And man, the talent that's coming out of South Africa right now is pretty amazing. So guys, there's not really more highlights from a tries point of view. A really total rugby performance from the Springboks. They have a lot to work on. First off, definitely disappointing from a Springbok perspective in their scrums. From a Scotland perspective, I think they're going to really have to go in and look deep at their game, because they had no answers to the Springboks. That was clear. The Springboks was totally reading Russell, watching when he's going to kick, putting a lot of pressure on him on the defense. And they had no B plan to play off of any other players. They did not have position. They did not play a good territorial game. And you're not going to win without those two things against the Springboks. They will suffocate you with the rush defense and just holding on to possession, playing through phases, and eventually breaking you down. Interestingly, that they decided to give Marnie Libbok player of the match after missing so many kicks. But we know that is really what took Scotland totally out of the game, was that one try from Curtly Oransu with that magnificent kick from Marnie Libbok. It was so interesting when you see the close-up where after he's kicked it, he actually looks away. So he kicks it and he looks away. He's so confident that his ball's going to land where he wanted it to kick. So guys, lastly, let's quickly have a look at the stats of this game. Now, if you scroll down here, you'll clearly see that from a territorial point of view, the whole game, 59% to 41%. So the Springboks about 60% of the territorial advantage, and that's one thing you want to take on the Springboks. You cannot play in your own half, because they will with time punish you in that area, not necessarily with penalty kicks, but eventually with tries, line out, scrums, set pieces. I'm saying not eventually with penalty kicks, because the kicking was actually really poor. From a possession point of view, it was pretty similar, but you could see the possession that Scotland had, they couldn't do that much with it. It was almost a 50-50, 46-54. And then looking from just attack, I mean, this is where the real stats come in. You see South Africa meters carried, really carrying the ball, getting over that gain line, 540 versus 225 from Scotland. Runs, not that different. Scotland had the opportunities with runs, but the rush defense just nullified that for most of it. Carries over the gain line, there you can see about double what Scotland could do with 51 versus 26. That's where you're going to lose the game against the Springboks. Defenders beaten, very similar. Offload similar, 4-3. Mauls 1. This again, the Springboks, when they started getting their rolling maul going second half, just such a weapon they've got. 4 versus 1. Ruck's 1, very similar. Scotland was good at the breakdown. They were really not bad at the breakdown. They were there. It's not like that's where they lost the game. Kicks from hand, very similar. So both teams going to the kicking game. The Springboks going more back to old school rugby, and that's again where I say the coaching staff has done so well. We haven't seen the Springboks play really well with their contestable up and under type game. They kind of wanted to play a running type rugby building up to this World Cup. It concerned me that there was no longer a kicking game in the plans, but it's like they've reverted back, but now they have a good mix. So really well done for me to the coaching staff and how they've developed this team by playing a lot of running rugby in the last while. So they get used to that, it gets kind of in the back of your mind. But then at the same time, also now reverting back to the type of kicking game, where a lot of the kicking was being done off of Fuff. Sometimes even the clearance kicking, similar to what the Pond does, he did for the Springboks. Not necessarily always winning the same type of field if you don't play off of your fly off, but the contestable kicking was amazing from them. So that's where the Springboks kicking game, it's a difficult thing to measure because they don't really kick for meters. So you'd see 613 meters versus 1,020 because Russell, plays a territorial game. He tries to get distance, where the Springboks play the up and under. It's more about the contestable game. And here comes the stat that will tell you that. 18 kicks regathered versus only 6 from Scotland. This means you get into the opposition half, you regain the ball. That's the success what I'm seeing with the Springboks right now. They were battling to regain ball before in some of these games. They're getting that right. That means they get the momentum back, play through phases again, and then run the backs. It's a very good recipe for them, and I see the Springboks doing very well if they stick to what they did today. From a kicks in touch, very similar, 7-5, total kicks 28-27. Then set pieces. This is another thing. The Springboks was a bit disappointing in that first half, losing some of their own scrums with only a 71%. But then you could see second half, they just came back and they just basically almost won all their scrums. And that really affected the Scotland stat there with only a 58% success rate. From a lineouts point of view, outstanding like always. And I love the fact that Springboks play contestable lineout type rugby, where the locks still go up and challenge. I've seen them not do that like all the time against the All Blacks. I love that they went and they said, look, we're good at this. We are going to contest. Because this is what we want to see, man. Lineout should be part of the game. A lot of teams just don't use the line out anymore. I love the way they use it, 91.7%, and then only 76% by Scotland. The Springboks gave five of the line outs, two of the line outs were stolen, and a lot of the time just not giving them clean ball, really making it scrappy for them because they're contesting in those line outs. Penalties conceded. Springboks always have a bit of a challenge around penalties just because of their rush defense. It's very aggressive, and always they're trying to jackal. They're always all over the ball trying to get those jackals, which always puts you on that infringement border. So getting away with 7, but Scotland, as they were struggling under pressure, conceding more penalties, and we know it's penalties that wins games. If less penalties, that's usually the teams that win the game. Statistics always tell you that. From a defense point of view, the Springboks not really being put under that much pressure, still having to take a lot of tackles at 92. And it's interesting because even from a Scottish perspective, the Springboks, they didn't take that much more tackles, 119, but the Springboks able to get a lot of more points out of their runs. Tackles missed, very similar. It's still a Springbok thing, which the Springboks have to work at, is their defense, their first time tackling. Look, but in generally, their rush, the structure was very good. Scotland couldn't really expose that today. And that rush defense really makes it very hard for a team that likes running if they don't get it right, because they just pretty much suffocate you. And turnovers won. In their own half, we see each team going at around 5-6, but turnovers won in the opposition half, and this is what the Springboks do well. What they do is they get those contestable kicks, they get into the opposition half, they run the phases, mistakes get made by the opposition team where they're trying to do what they can to retain the ball off their feet, those type of things, and that means then it's penalties, and it's convertible penalties. If the Springboks today converted all their kicks, this would have been a proper win, like much further than this. Not that this is not a proper win, but it would have been 25 points probably. Definitely something for me, if the Springboks can just acknowledge that, I think if a Faf de Klerk just takes the tee for the rest of this World Cup, then Manie can develop his game again in the URC, his place kicking game. But let Manie play, he's a really good game maker and I like him there. But let's rather give Faf the kicking boot, give Faf the kicking tee. Anyway guys, I was quite, I enjoyed this game a lot and I was quite impressed with the Springboks performance for the first game. I think it was not clinical would be going too far. There was still a lot of things they can work at. But they were very patient. They played like champs in the sense that they were in control of that game from the start to the finish. And they look like a team, when I've looked at the rest of the teams, you know, that's going to be one of the big ones. You know, France is in there, Ireland's looking good, and the Springboks really, that's the team that really, to me at this point in time, stands out. Look, it's still early in this World Cup, a lot can happen. Guys, if you enjoyed my reaction to this video, please, if you watch my stuff, man, I'm putting in a lot of work to get these videos out, and every subscriber helps. It also means that in your homepage, you will see my videos come up. Hit the subscribe button. I'll be right to this World Cup. Appreciate all of you. Thanks, bye.